Hey everybody, my name is Ash and I'm the vegan neuropsychologist. Thank you so much for joining me and Happy New Year. This is my first live stream on Facebook on this channel, so I'm really delighted that you're joining me, whether you're here live or you're watching the replay. So today's topic is about how to stay positive in a fucked up world. And I guess this is kind of a big issue, so I'm going to take a really small section of it to present this here for you this evening. So if we haven't met before, I'm a neuropsychologist, which means I'm a little bit obsessed with the brain. I really love knowing how our brain works and how other people think and what causes us to behave the way that we do. And one of the things I'm really passionate about is activism. I guess the two main areas that I do most of my activism regarding is animal rights and children's rights. And so I believe we all have a message to share and I'm here to support you while you do it. All right, so let's get straight into the topic for today, which is about how to stay positive in this fucked up world. And I just want to take a moment to talk about positivity. I think in this day and age, positivity sort of has a bit of a strange rap. Maybe it's got a bit of a bad rap. I think ever since we started talking about emotional intelligence in pop psychology, there's been a bit of a misconception about what that means. So I'm going to be addressing that as well. But first I want to give you a few tips, I guess, as to why it's so hard sometimes to stay positive, especially in the climate that we're living in. If you're an activist, you'll know what I'm talking about. It can be really difficult to stay positive, especially when you're surrounded by so many negative messages and negative interactions. So there are three main things that drain our positivity in certain situations. So I'm going to give you an example. I think it's something we can all relate to. Let's say you have been having a conversation with someone about something important. Maybe it's the environment or sustainability or animal rights. And the conversation's not going as well as you thought it might. And maybe it's gotten a bit heated and maybe you've even gotten into a bit of an argument. So that's the situation you found yourself in. And what our brain likes to try and do is figure out, what went wrong? What is it about the interaction? Why didn't it go as well as it could have? And so there's millions of thoughts that are racing through our minds. And there are three sort of clusters of thoughts that can really drain our positivity. Hello to everybody who's watching live. I can't really see any comments, so if you're around, let me know where you're from. If you're in Melbourne, if you're in Australia or somewhere in this wonderful world, just let me know where you're from. And remember to hit the like and love and the wow and whatever, hopefully not the angry face or the sad face responses if you like what you're hearing. So there are three main things. Hey Ella, it is so good to see you here. Thank you for being here. Three main things that drain our positivity. Okay, so we're in a situation, we've had a conversation that hasn't gone very well and thousands of thoughts running through our mind. One cluster of thoughts is going to be blaming ourselves. So we're going to say things to ourselves like, I'm not a good communicator, I'm not that smart, I'm not a good activist. So something about ourselves that we feel is responsible for why the interaction didn't go so well. And this could be true, but you don't know for sure. And you got to intermix this with other possibilities, like maybe the person you were speaking with just wasn't receptive to the message at that time. Maybe that person just wasn't in a frame of mind to hear anything about what you were discussing. Maybe that person had a bad experience just a few minutes before, and so they came into your interaction already feeling a little bit grumpy or a little bit negative, and so of course the negativity sort of infused your conversation. There's many reasons why a conversation doesn't go well. There are many people to whom that could be attributed. It's not necessarily ourselves, but when we think that it's about us, when we think that we're at fault, it can be really demoralizing and it can drain our positivity. So that's one cluster of reasons why we might feel a little bit hopeless or a little bit helpless or negative in our interactions. So the second group is when we start to think that the problems are fixed and unchanging. So maybe we say to ourselves that the person we're speaking with, they're never going to change. We say things like, they're never going to learn, they're never going to change their mind. Maybe we even think those things about ourselves. Maybe we think, I'm just not that smart and there's nothing I can do about it. Maybe we think that we're just not that good at communicating and we've tried to improve our communication skills, but it hasn't gone really well, and we're too old for it now, or we're just a lost cause for it now. So when we think that the issue is one that's permanent, that can also drain our positivity. And the third area that can really drain our positivity is when our thoughts are, when we generalize them to everything about ourselves. So we say things like, it can't change and it's never going to change in any area. So we might say that the world, we might say things like our communication is bad in this interaction. No wonder, because we just don't communicate that well in any circumstance. So when we start to generalize it, instead of compartmentalizing the interaction, I hope that makes sense. Instead of making it about that particular interaction, we just say that, no, we're just no good in any situation. Maybe we say that we generalize to other people. We say that no one is willing to listen to us. Maybe we say that people are just messed up. This one interaction didn't go well, and we generalize it to all people. We just say the world is messed up, people are messed up, no one's going to change. And sometimes we hit the trifecta. So the things that we tell ourselves actually tick all of the boxes. So we say that we think that we're bad communicators, or we're not that smart, or we're not good activists. We think that we've never been able to change and it's never going to change and we're a lost cause. And we think that we're not effective in any situation, no matter what it is that we're advocating for, or maybe whatever it is that we're communicating about. So these three areas, they really drain our positivity. And if you want to know more about this, these ideas are nothing new. You can Google learned optimism. This has been around in the field of positive psychology for a really long time. So learned optimism, just type it into Google and you'll find loads of resources. So one thing that I want to mention about all of this though, is that there's this real misconception that positive people are always positive and that positive people always have positive thoughts. And that's not actually the case. So there's been a lot of research done about this, and generally what we know is that positive people tend to have more positive thoughts than negative thoughts. And the reason is because negative thoughts are incredibly powerful. One negative thought can really just drag us down, whereas it takes several positive thoughts for us to boost ourselves back up again. So if you think about a seesaw, let's say you've got one grown up at one end of it, you can't just put one kid at the other end and expect it to balance. You're going to have to put 2 or 3 kids there if you want it to be an even playing field. And it's like that with our positive and negative thoughts. Our brain is really, really good at focusing on the negative. It has to be. It evolved to be that way to protect us. So we scan the environment looking for possible threats, and anything that's a bit ambiguous or a bit neutral, we tend to interpret it as being negative. So if someone's saying something to us and we're like, is that person having a go at me? Our brain tends to believe that they are, because we're scanning for potential threats. So our brain's really good at being negative, which means that we need to actively counterbalance that with positive thoughts. So it's not to stop the negative thoughts completely. Positive people do have negative thoughts. So I really want to reiterate that. If you are here, wanting to be more positive, if you're trying to stifle your negative thoughts, that's not the way to go about it. You actually make them stronger, you make them more powerful by trying to stifle them. But what you want to do with your negative thoughts is be more aware of when they're happening and recognize that the negative thoughts, yes, they can be powerful, but you actually have the power to implement some positive thoughts and change your perspective on situations so that you even up the playing field a bit and the seesaw is a little bit more balanced. So I'm going to be wrapping this up pretty soon. So if you've got any questions, if you want to have a chat while I'm here live, then please feel free to pop a question in the comment box. Let me know what your thoughts are. And so I guess I just want to wrap up by talking about how we can be more positive. How can we implement these positive thoughts? The first thing we need to do is recognize when the thoughts are happening. And most of us aren't really that good at recognizing the thoughts that are going through our mind. They go through our mind really quickly. So what we can do is create a bit of emotional distance. So recognizing that a thought is passing through our mind, but we don't necessarily have to believe in the thought that we're thinking. So that's the first step. The second step is realizing that when the negative thoughts are going through our mind, those negative thoughts are probably just a habit of thinking. They're not necessarily reflective of who we are as people. There's nothing shameful or bad about having the thoughts that we have. They're just there. They're just passing through, and we can decide whether we want to hang on to them and pull them back into our mind and think about them a lot more, or we can just let them go. And the third thing is about changing the perspective on the thought that we're having. So if we start believing things like, or rather if we start thinking things like, I'm not that smart, or I'm not a good communicator, I'm not a good activist, or this is all just too hard and it's never going to get easier, we can pause for a moment and ask ourselves, is that really true? Because maybe there's actually lots of examples where we've communicated really well, or we've shown some signs of intelligence. Maybe we know that we're quite able in other areas, we know we're quite capable. And so we ask ourselves, the thought that we're thinking, is it really true? And maybe we can then go on to think about situations where no, actually, that thought isn't true. We are capable, we are good communicators, and we are able in all these other areas. Because once we start questioning the thoughts that we're having, it actually opens up the door to, hey, maybe that thought really isn't true. And from there, we can start to, it's called reframe, or we can restructure the way that we're thinking about situations, and we can start to think, actually, maybe what it is that I'm thinking about isn't true, and maybe a different perspective is that that person just wasn't in a situation to really listen to what it is that I'm saying, or to really care about what I'm saying. Or maybe we've had good conversations with them in the past and today just wasn't one of them, but next time it will go a lot better. So being positive, to sum up, being positive isn't just about having the positive thoughts, it's also being accepting of the negative thoughts that cross through our mind. So there's a lot more to say on this topic, but I think I'll wrap it up here. If you're watching the replay and you do have questions, you can still pop them below in the comments, and I will check. I always check them, and I will get back to you on them. So before we finish up, I just want to say thank you to you first of all for watching, and also for supporting me. I know right now this channel, this page is pretty small. I think that this issue is really important though. So I know that if you're watching here, it's because you've got an important message to share. You're already doing fantastic work, and I'm here to support you to make it even better. And if you're interested in learning more about staying positive in a fucked up world, well, guess what? I've got a book coming out that's called Staying Positive in a Fucked Up World. And what I'll be doing is, down below, you'll find a link where you can sign up just to receive updates. The book has been written, and it is now gone on to the next stage, which is printing and distribution. So I'm pretty excited about that. So if you want to sign up to get the updates, I'll also be sharing excerpts from the book and stuff, so you can get a bit of a heads up on what it's all about. Oh, thank you, Jay Sherry. I'm so glad to see you here. Jay Sherry, by the way, is part of the Melbourne Save group, and she's a really prolific activist. So if you want to follow her on Facebook, she's a really inspiring person, really, really great activist. So thank you, Jay Sherry, for being here. Thank you, Ella, for your participation here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next broadcast. So I haven't decided what my next broadcast topic will be, but it will be along the lines of activism, advocacy, and mental health. So if you've got burning questions, just let me know what they are. You can shoot me a message privately if you want to remain anonymous, or just pop a comment down below and I will see it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.